You need NBA talent in March.
Yep.
And brother, I think we got it. And he's wearing number 0.
Yeah, he lived up to the hype for sure. He really has both games. He's been really good.
He hit the freaking free throws, man, when you got to have them. Listen, I still don't love those floaters, but holy crap. Like once he sees one go down and he kind of figures it out, and just again, you can't say enough about this team that when Janai has a bad game, the way that guys just refuse to quit and step up around him. Oh, it's the stuff of dreams, man. It's what you want. You don't want to be a one guy team.
Yeah, and we had been the last few weeks. I mean, that was the so we're live now. So
All right, sweet. Give me
uh
oh no, hold on. I clicked on the there we are. Oh, it's the stuff of dreams, man. Sorry, YouTube, you gotta hear yourself. I'm gonna blast this thing out and then we can get rolling. And Matt, if you don't mind, I'd love to do the intro since it's your triumphant return to the jungle. I'd like there to be a little
sure,
build
go
up.
for it. I don't know if it needs to be triumphant. Happy, glad it worked out. I could help. I know Ryan's been doing a lot. You've been doing a lot. So
I'm just glad we could bring you back for a win, man. You know, it feels like when we get Will in here and it's like Will's the undefeated host.
yeah, he was there. We'll have to get some
Yeah.
get some insight from him this week.
We'll talk to him about that for sure at some point. Maybe we'll do a midweek episode about Auburn making it to the Sweet 16 for only the second time in my lifetime.
Oh, I don't know your age, but I
Oh
believe
wait, no,
it's
hang
number
on, third time.
four.
We made it in '99, right? '99 was when we got
Number
eliminated in Sweet 16 too.
we also made it in '03.
Yeah, that's the second time.
So and then this year in 19.
Oh, did I
So
not say the
four.
third time? Sorry, the third. Oh, okay, no, so it is 4. It is 4. Okay, '99. I didn't realize we
I
also made it
thought
in
it was
'99.
three, but I'd look it up. It's
No,
four.
I think yeah, this is 4, right?
This is four. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, 2 seconds, and we're gonna be ready to go.
Sixth
Any
time
longer
ever,
than
I
two
believe.
seconds. Yeah, 6th time overall, 4th time in our lifetimes.
Yep.
All right. I got the box score up here. Have you got Ferg's box score ready to
Yep.
share? All right,
Yep.
let's go live, baby.
All right. We will start recording in hang on. Haven't done this in a while. Three.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, NBs, all Auburn folks, we are here after a second round victory over the Creighton Blue Jays, 82-70, a 12-point victory to keep Auburn still dancing. And folks, whose music do I hear? Is that Matt Donaldson in the corner? Holy cow, the founder of the podcast, the stats man, the numbers man himself. Matt Donaldson is back. Matt Donaldson, say hello to the fans of the Jungle Auburn podcast.
What an intro and what a night, Ben. What a roller coaster we've been on this weekend. Does it feel like this weekend has been like 6 days? Because that's kind of how it's felt for me. Man, coming off of just such a the most disappointing 20-point win you could have in the NCAA tournament 2 days ago. Uh, Everybody wisely had such good respect for Creighton and the program that they have. Coach McDermott's incredible. Ashworth is like a menace. Kalkbrenner's really good, although I think Auburn, the big guys did a great job on him. Just a great win. And it's one of those games where I know it was scary when you're down at halftime to the 9 seed, but when you started thinking about it, like Creighton's hitting a ton of tough threes and doing, that well, but we were doing everything else well, Ben. We were doing everything else well, and we were only down two, and you just had to trust that if we kept defending like that, that the shooting was going to balance out, which it did, and Auburn came away taking control of the second half with some big stretches I'm sure we'll talk about. Huge win, Sweet 16. We had to get to the second weekend. We did it. It was incredible to watch. So glad we didn't let it get to a 1 or 2 possession game like you've been talking about. It was amazing, and I'm so glad to be dancing next weekend.
Matt, there's only so long I can shake my head. I'm dizzy now from all of the disagreements I have with all those points because what this team just did, defies logic, it defies stats, it defies all the numbers, and it is what March is all about. Whenever you watch college basketball, the analytics matter so much. And then when you get to March, you just crumple them up and throw them in the trash. Your friends that all watch college basketball, their brackets are already in the toilet. But Janice from HR, brother, she's 30-2 in the first round. I mean, she is just crushing it because it does not matter. That's why we love March. That's why they call it March Madness. They don't call it March Chalk, brother. So it's just watching what Auburn did tonight, and we're going to talk about when we get into the team stats breakdown. It was the corner that we all knew this team could turn, but it was the corner that we had all been hoping this team could turn because it had been so long since we had seen the Tigers lock in the way they did tonight. And Matt, we played 8 guys tonight. How crazy is that for a Bruce Pearl team?
Seven.
I've got
I
eight
mean,
guys listed here because we had
it
Jakai
was
Howard in there for
eight,
2 minutes.
but that's what I'm saying. I mean, he came in when Chad was hurt for a second, and they were deciding what they wanted to do. So it's the seven guys, and Thomas Northcutt, who some people may know on Twitter, put out a great graphic that I made my wallpaper today, and it literally has. I'm gonna show this for the YouTube people. You can download this. It's great. Oh, I can't get it to
You've got the background blur.
unblur. But
We'll share it
anyway,
out on
it's
X,
the
everybody.
it's the seven guys. It's the seven guys. And you and I have talked so often. What made this team great early in the year was the weapons, just the amount of weapons we had, and every guy kind of had his thing. And tonight was really the first time in quite a while where we saw all those weapons on display. Because Janai didn't do much, quite frankly. Kalkbrenner was good against him. He struggled. He didn't play well. I didn't think he sulked at all. I thought he did some nice things on the glass. I thought he did some nice
Oh
things,
yeah.
in some areas. But this was a game for the guards, and I just credit this staff a lot because they knew they were going to get wide open shots off that drop coverage at the high pick and rolls, and it was going to be up to Denver, Chad, and Tahad to make plays and make shots, and they did.
Well, Matt, there's a couple of guys that we could talk about as MVPs tonight, but I want to start with probably what I would think is your least expected guy to be in the MVP conversation, Dylan Cardwell. Dylan Cardwell played out of his mind tonight. We heard him as one of the guys after the Alabama State game, calling this team out, calling the effort out, saying, I want to be a guy that plays in the Final Four. This is the winningest player in Auburn basketball history, a guy that's going to graduate with at least 3 rings from his time playing with the Auburn Tigers, saying that he wants more out of this team. Dylan Cardwell as our starting 5, perfect from the floor tonight, 3 of 3. He had 4 rebounds, but Matt, he is tied for the team lead in assists tonight with 3. Have you ever seen passing like this from Dylan Cardwell?
He just does all the dirty work. He's kind of he's the big glue guy, right? Like Chris Moore is kind of the wing glue guy. And Dylan, he was locked in. He's I think the only guy I can't remember missing an assignment on that 3-point line. Our whole plan defensively was built to chase guys and make it really tough at the 3-point line. And he guarded Ashworth. He guarded their wing, who I forget his name, Neil. He guarded everybody when he got switched out, and he had some big rebounds. Obviously, 6 points from him we always talk about is great, but yeah, he was everywhere, and he's the glue. It was no coincidence that he played 21 minutes, which is more than his usual. And we liked having him guard Kalkbrenner more than Broom, and he
Oh,
was
yeah.
very effective in doing so. Not only that, on offense, it was brilliant by the staff. It didn't work out with points necessarily, but we had this great plan to seal him off and let Broom not have to worry about the shot blocker, let Cheney not. It was really smart the way we did it. And Dylan, as always, completely locked into the scout on both ends. And he led. He Ryan in our group chat said he walked the talk. I mean, he
Yeah.
backed up the talk. He always brings it, but it was great to see the announcers in this big spot acknowledge all these little things that Dylan does that make this team. I'm glad you brought him up because he's probably not our MVP, but he's the only guy that does what he does. And we have 7 of those guys, and he played his role really well tonight.
And Matt, you talked about this a little bit already, but I want to say it again for the non-ball folks. The screen action by Dylan Cardwell tonight was just incredible. And Jackson and I and Ryan to some degree have complained a little bit this season about our bigs getting into the lane a little too early when Janai is in there and getting him doubled. But what we did tonight was use him to get in there and wall off the action to the backside. It's what got Cheney looks inside. It's what got Janai looks inside. It worked for our guards as well. And it's not something that's going to show up in the stats sheet. You don't see how many good screens Dylan Cardwell set listed anywhere in Justin Ferguson's box score. Shout out Ferg. You don't see it anywhere on the ESPN box score, but your eyeballs are going to tell you how important Dylan Cardwell was to us getting looks at the basket against a true 7-footer.
You're right. You're right. And just looking down the line, like uh it was a great plan, and it was a great I honestly don't think we could have drawn up a better win for where this team was, because I thought I was sensing some trends of like the Jabari team, where by the end of the year Jabari was accelerating and he was scoring more and doing more and carrying that team, but the rest of the weapons were falling apart as we got to March. And that's
But
ultimately kind of, and then he had a bad game against Miami, and
well,
it was over. I mean,
even more so than him having a bad game against Miami, because I went back and listened to our Miami breakdown, which was you and Jackson having the tough call of doing the end of the year podcast, and it was really Kessler. You know,
yeah,
we've watched this as an Auburn team so much. If you're an Auburn basketball fan, late in March, late in the year, our guys getting good looks inside of 2 feet and just not finishing, and it's so hard to watch because you've watched a guy like Janai Broome be dominant all year. He comes in, he went 4 of 13 from the floor today. Just an incredibly uncharacteristic offensive night. And even a guy like Cheney was struggling a little bit inside early. And it's just probably the guy who struggled the most inside early was Chad Baker Mazzara. We heard a lot about Janai Broome and Chad Baker Mazzara being called out by Stephen Pearl as guys that have to bring more effort. And on the defensive end, those two were absolutely locked in from the start of this game. That energy you saw from Chad when he forced a turnover late against Alabama State carried over into this one. He decided to fall back in love with winning basketball plays on every possession. And it showed because Chad had a rough first half. He was 2 for 7 in the first half. He finished the game 6 for 12. That means he had a 4 of 5 second half shooting performance. And that includes getting what looked like a hip pointer and barely being able to get out there on the floor. Matt, talk about Chad Baker Mazzara's game with 17 points.
yeah. I mean, this is what we've been wanting. Even the 2 for 7, they were open looks. They were in the flow of the offense. Um, he was completely calm the whole game. He showed a little emotion on an and one, which is fine,
Yeah.
and positive emotion. And he was obviously very hurt both physically and emotionally that he couldn't finish that game. Like that was kind of neat to see that he
But I
was
will tell
so
you,
committed to
he
playing this game and playing it the right way. And by the way, I thought he defended his tail off, where I haven't really seen that in a month from him. He wasn't perfect. He never is on that end necessarily, but I thought he tried, and he tried, he gave great effort, and he was fairly locked into what we were trying to do.
he missed his first free throw, which hurt, and you felt like, oh no, is this going to be one of those nights where we have the free throw troubles? And as a team, still not great, 71% overall. But Chad Baker Mazzara finished 3 for 3, including after going to the floor hard. He came in and hit 2 big free throws and then collapsed to the floor to get himself out of that game. It, not to be dramatic, a little reminiscent of Kobe Bryant tearing his Achilles tendon and then coming in to hit those 2 free throws anyway. We needed those free throws. All right.
We did.
The injury is not as dramatic, but in terms of the need for winning this game, we needed those points, man. Creighton started fouling early.
And when you're a great free throw shooter, especially, you don't want to let the other team choose another shooter, right? So he needed to stay in, and he did. He played that really well. And by the way, 0 turnovers as well. So I thought Chad was great. It's weird for me. If you've listened to the podcast, I was kind of like probably the most angry and vindictive against Chad last year.
Ooh. Oh
Uh,
yeah, last year for
I
sure.
think he had gotten a little better this year, but then it's amazing. The fan base has just gotten sick of it, quite frankly. Like everybody's just gotten sick of some of the extra stuff. and even Thursday is just on another planet almost during the game. It was really weird. But he is, I keep telling it's true. He is the second best player on this team. He elevates this team. He gives this team a wing that can go to the basket. Jackson always has talked about that from that small forward position. He
Shout
does
out
things that
Jackson.
only Chad can do, and we need him to fill his role. And tonight was about as good as I've seen him do it in a long time. Not just the shooting and the free throws, but not being a liability in other areas as well, and not letting 2 for 7 take away from the other end of the floor. So kudos to him. I'm sure there was a lot of talking and a lot of team meetings. There were at least two players meetings between the two games, which is never good, but it worked. And there was a lot of um, good energy between him and the coaches on the bench, between him and the players on the court. So Chad deserves a lot of credit for being able to come past the last few weeks that have just been, I'm sure, really hard for him. Some of it's brought on himself, but he got rid of it and he was fully engaged in this game, and he's a big reason why we're moving on.
An extremely big reason, but probably the biggest reason of all. If you listen to our preview episode and our recap of that first game with Ryan Storm and Norman, shout out Ryan can't be here tonight. We talked about the bench points. Creighton
Yep.
is not a team that gets a ton of points off the bench. In all of their losses, they had gotten 11 points or less from their bench. But Matt Donaldson, holy cow, we got 31 points from the bench tonight, and 23 of them came from one guy. That 5-star inside shooting dog of a point guard from New Jersey. Shout out New Jersey. Tahad Pettiford. Matt, talk about Tahad Pettiford's game tonight.
It's just unbelievable. For those of us who have been big truthers for Tahad for a long time, this is what you hoped he would be. The ball was in his hands for the last 10 minutes of this game. He was the closer at point guard. There was never a question that he was going to be on the floor the whole time. He had every shot. He hit clutch free throws. He took care of the ball. Um, he was terrific, and this is
Yeah, and
by far
Matt,
the biggest spot he's been in.
we did something amazing to end this game, which none of us predicted in the preseason. And even Bruce Pearl would not have told you what he thought was going to happen. Tahad Pettiford played the one to close this game, and Denver Jones went home to that two guard position. And after hitting two huge 3-pointers in the middle of the second half, completely opened up the floor and created this room that Tahad Pettiford absolutely took advantage of. We used to talk about Katie Johnson looking like the best athlete on the floor as the guy who could get to the cup and finish. But when you watch a guy like Tahad Pettiford, you understand where that fifth star comes from. His ability to pull up and hit those floaters in the lane, his fearlessness against some of the best competition in America. We've already talked about Creighton as a program. We've already talked about their huge win in the first round and the incredible effort that they shot. And Tahad Pettiford was just better tonight. 23 points. He finished with 3 assists again, 6 rebounds from the guard position, which is huge. And only 2 turnovers for him tonight, including one which I think should have been a foul. This is
Yep.
probably Tahad Pettiford's best game in an Auburn uniform since the Houston game.
I was gonna say he's had a couple of really good ones. But you're right. I mean, in the sense of Janai didn't do much. We'll talk maybe more about him a little later, but like Janai was kind of neutralized and it became a guards game. And we've been playing Tahad at point all year when he comes in. So I mean, very comfortable with that. I think you're right. I think it's a little surprising. uh, I don't know. I would say a month or two ago I wasn't sure, but now it's just obvious he has something different at that point guard position. And I absolutely love. We slowed. Did you see how we slowed the pace the last 10 minutes once we built that double digit lead? We never.
Oh my gosh, it
Now
was
did that
brilliant. It was
did
so
did
good.
that lead to some shot clock violations and some not great possessions? Yes, but it also shortened the game, and it was really smart. I've seen our teams not do that a lot over the
Yeah.
years, and I was just really impressed. And he never had to slow Tahad down. Like Tahad had that sense that when we got a defensive rebound, he knew it was good for us to run some clock and get in our half court offense that's very efficient and do it. And I just he this was a great matchup for Tahad too, because A, he was more athletic than the guys guarding him. And B, they just Creighton refuses to not play drop coverage on those high screens, which means your guards are going to be wide open coming off that screen. The big guy's not going to come out. and guard him. So open threes, open mid range. I know people don't like mid range shots, but that's what they're giving you. And I thought all of our guards, but especially Tahad, really took advantage of that. And that's what we had to do when Broom and our usual offensive sets, and Miles Kelly, by the way. I was
Yeah.
told in our group chat that if Miles Kelly had a bad game, we were cooked. And Tahad said, no, sir, not tonight.
Oh, listen, if you were in our group chat, listen, we got to get that going for next year because the fans are going to love that. We already know the fans love cooking us for our lack of ball knowledge, but holy cow, we're gonna get into the team stats that are going to talk about what an incredible effort Auburn put together tonight. But Matt, before we go too much farther, I think it's time to crown our MVP. Go ahead, give it to him.
Absolutely. Tahad Pettiford deservedly has the MVP for this game. I think it's fairly clear. We talked about Chad's contributions. I think let's go ahead and talk about two more players, and then we'll get to the team because Denver Jones deserves a lot of attention for how he played tonight.
Oh my gosh, Denver Jones' second half was a masterclass in a guy that
It really
waited the entire first half. He never forced anything. He let the game come to him, and the staff recognized that, like, hey, if we slot Denver into that two spot, because Miles was picking up some fouls, Miles was having a little bit of trouble getting through the screens. Denver Jones has been our best player on defense, fighting through screens. Putting Denver at the two for so much of the second half completely changed the dynamic of this game.
played the most minutes. He was a hound on Ashworth when he was on him. He always does that. The question, if Jackson was here, the question would be, can he score in the big
Yes,
moments against the good
yes,
teams? And
yes.
and tonight he just went 5 for 8, hit both his threes, hit all his free throws, and was amazing. Like he again took advantage of that coverage and he made one of those plays. These games come down to these moments when you think Auburn's choking away the game. Like Janai Broom had a huge bucket coming out of under four timeout when a possession had kind of broken down. But the other play was Denver Jones with an amazing and one at the rim when things were getting tight. And that really, I mean, he gave them the night celebration, which I thought was a little early, but it was a huge play. And the question with Denver has always been just finishing in the lane and making those tough twos and showing up in the big games. He's
Denver
not
two
the
of two,
MVP.
2 of 2 from deep tonight, 3 of 3 from the free throw line, 3 massive assists, including an incredible interior pass to feed Dylan Cardwell without Janai Broom on the floor. I mean,
Yeah.
just a masterclass. The first half was not great, and so credit to this staff for understanding the adjustments that need to be made. But Denver Jones in that second half took this game over.
Yeah, no, he did, and he was terrific. I thought him and Tahad both they were getting a lot of love on the broadcast as they should have. They were kind of the difference in the game, I thought. So Denver's not the MVP, but man, that's about as good as it gets from Denver. So he deserves a lot of credit. And then Chaney Johnson, I know you said he missed a couple, but like he was 4 for 5 from
Early,
two
he just
tonight.
missed a couple. He just missed a couple early. That's all.
But I'm just saying, he's 4 for 5 from two. He had 8 rebounds for a guy that everybody's been on him about not getting rebounds. He had no turnovers, and he played 25 minutes. He was on the floor because he wasn't in foul trouble. And maybe that's the big overarching thing.
Big time.
Well, to finish my point first, all 7 of our guys had 5 or more points, and all of our points came from those 7 guys.
Our 7 weapons.
I say 6 a lot because I don't count Dylan as an offensive weapon. He threw in 6 points, but like
Point treasure.
everybody played their role and had their moments, and that's what this team needs to beat the teams we're going to have to beat moving forward. So Cheney, I thought was really good and under control, and overall as a team, I thought we had a lot of bad bounces go against us in this game. I thought we had a lot of weird calls go against us in this game, and none of it seemed to rattle anybody. And I thought everybody played really well, and we defended without fouling. They hit a lot of threes. Maybe Cheney fell asleep just for a split second on that one at the end of the first half, and Stephen Pearl was about to have an aneurysm against him. Um, but other than a couple slight missteps in the first half on some threes, man, I thought our defensive game plan was good, and I thought everybody was locked into it.
Matt, can you see how much we won on the glass by tonight?
Yeah,
We out
10 rebound
rebounded
plus
them
10.
by 10.
Yeah.
We turned them over 11 times to our 7 turnovers. We won the block party. Shout out Jackson in Europe. I don't know how they say block in Luxembourg, but we'll figure it out for the next time. We won the block party 4-1. We lost the assist game tonight, which tells me that we forced Creighton to move the ball a ton, and particularly late in the game. I think that was the difference. Our ability to deny them their first look and force them to move the ball around the key killed the clock. And it allowed us, once we got up 14, they went on a 7-0 run. Bruce Pearl, to his credit, he called a heat check timeout before the lead had evaporated, which was
Yep.
absolutely huge. And we just forced them to continue moving the ball and looking for the right kind of shot rather than giving them some of the even looks they had in the first half. But Matt, Creighton shot 44% from deep tonight. They shot 47% from the floor. Those are numbers that when Creighton hits, they usually win. And this Auburn team is all about making history. That is defying the history of this Creighton basketball team to let them shoot that well and lose the basketball game. How on earth
So
did we
yeah,
pull that off?
yeah, let's talk about why that happened. And this is the reason. Again, this team just has a lot of ways they can beat you. We've said it all year. Um, yeah, Creighton shot really well. But if you notice, who else shot 47% at the end of the day? We did. We matched, we balanced the shooting in the second half, which is kind of what I was hoping would happen. So then you look at it, you say, okay, we shot the same percentage. They shot a little better from three. We shot better from the line and got to the line more often. So how did we win? How did we win? We got 11 more shots. How did we get 11 more shots? We were plus 7 on the offensive glass, plus 13 in second chance points. And then the turnovers, like you said, 4 extra possessions, 11-7. Um, those rebounding and turnovers, I'm telling you, our offense is fine. It's maybe not as pretty as it used to be. Maybe it maybe it's not elite number one in the country like it was for a long time. But our offense is really good and it's really efficient, even on a night when Broom was probably at his worst offensively, I would say, just about. Um, the defense and the rebounding and the winning the turnover margin, those are Bruce Pearl's staples. And that's what wins championship. He's been very clear, like that's what this team has to do. And they did a really good job. They had a little bit of a size advantage outside of Kalkbrenner, so they took advantage of that tonight. It's great to see us be plus 13 in second chance points, right? Like how many
Oh,
games
yeah.
in a row does it feel like we've been down in that one?
Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see. It's so nice to see us up in turnovers, up in rebounds, up in second chance points. All things we knew we could do against this team because everybody talked about how Creighton doesn't foul, right? Creighton commits some of the least fouls in America. But luckily for us, our weakness is in free throw shooting. So we didn't want them to foul. We wanted them to play that game. And listen, we haven't done a great job of going to the YouTube chat. Shout out YouTube. We're all glad you're all here celebrating with us. We got Chris Thomas saying War Eagle big win. Good body language today. I feel like I agree. I saw some stuff I didn't love from Ja'Kai Howard a little early on, especially given that he got some minutes tonight with Chris Moore being injured and not playing.
Yeah, he was
But
good.
I thought we got good minutes out of Ja'Kai Howard. You know, we when we needed some rest, that was pretty big. Jay Lowry's here. Thank you, Tahad MVP. It is pretty obvious. They were also exhausted at the half. Matt, you talked about that a little bit. I think our depth finally won through. That our guys were better. Our ability to be able to put guys on the bench and get them some rest when we needed to made a huge difference. Chris Thomas is here. Tahad is the MVP for sure. Cardwell locked up the big man. I think, listen, Dylan Cardwell had an amazing night tonight for sure. Oh man, Pocket Watch is checking in from Rupp. Shout out Pocket Watch. Shout out Shooty Hoops Will. We love all of our Auburn fans that were able to make it to Rupp today and cheer this team to victory. Our first Sweet 16 in 6 years. Man, it makes a difference. Mr. Beautiful, great game. I think we might be locked back in. I don't know, Matt. What do you think? Do you agree with Mr. Beautiful? Are we locked back in finally?
I mean, yeah, they're gonna have to do it the rest of the way, right? Like I don't know. I thought they were tonight. I thought even in halftime when we're down, I really was super impressed with how we came out to start the game. I was impressed with our defensive plan. I was impressed with the looks we were getting on offense. We didn't make as many in the first half as I would have liked. And I was nervous that Janai just was a non-factor, but I really liked how the team played. I thought their attitudes were great. I thought the energy and effort, the way we defended Creighton. There's only one way to wear a team down. You have to you have to put your will on these guys. And the way we were guarding at the 3 point line, making all those guards scramble constantly to try to get open, to try to get an open look. That just wears on you when three of their best three players played the whole game. And I think we did wear them out a little bit with the way, but that only works if we defend the way we're supposed to defend. And I thought we did overall tonight.
You're not going to beat a lot of teams that are shooting 44% from deep, but the way that you do it is by hitting your shots when it matters. And again, like I can't say enough about Denver Jones tonight being patient in that first half, and the way he came out and attacked in the second half completely changed the way that Creighton had to play on the floor. And when we needed to get into our half sets late to kill the clock, that was what made the difference. Creighton feeling like they had to defend the whole floor, not just whoever had the ball in their hands, made such a massive difference for us down the
The
stretch.
first the first two possessions of the second half, like you said, it's annoying to be down at halftime as a one seed. We have to be on defense to start. We get a great defensive stop. Janai dribbles down court as kind of a point forward, hits Denver at the top of the key, and Denver zero hesitation with 26 seconds on the shot clock because he was open from three, and that's what Bruce and the coaches have been drilling into him. You are a really good shooter. I think he's our highest percentage 3-point shooter, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
Yep.
Um,
Miles is now under 40% from three.
and all of a sudden we're winning, because and Denver got us off to that start, and he had the finishing bucket at the rim, and not to mention all the defense. So, I mean, and Denver is I call him the adult on this team.
Oh
He's
yeah.
kind of the and maybe Miles Kelly to an extent as well, but Denver's just an adult. And the reason Creighton made me nervous is because they have a bunch of grown old men. People make fun of us for being old. Kalkbrenner's been there just as long as Broom has. Ashworth's been there longer than anybody on our team, I'm pretty sure.
I think we saw
And
Ashworth's
then
kid in the crowd again, right? That was Ashworth's kid.
yes,
Yeah.
he has a child that's there. So, um, you know, I think I was impressed with our ability to rise to the level of the adults because Creighton's going to push the ball down the floor. They're going to make the right basketball play, and they know who they are. They have a very clear identity. And for a team in Auburn that looked like had zero knowledge, they were not executing that identity at all 48 hours ago against a subpar team. We rose to that challenge. And in a way, I kind of like that we were down at half because we had to not panic. We didn't freak out. We stuck to the plan. We made some changes to make the plan even better defensively, I think. And our guys bought into it just a little more and paid more attention to it. And I thought we adjusted really well. And then it's all the other guys. It's all the guards, right? Chad had his run in the second half. Denver had his moments, and then Tahad brought us home. And I think for a team that was so uncertain of itself the last few weeks at times, this is a really team building win because everybody outside of our national player of the year, I thought played really well. And
And
you
even
can build
Janai,
around that.
even Janai grabbed 12 boards tonight. And we've talked a lot about how Janai's offense struggles when he faces true 7-footers. And this is probably the first time in his Auburn career that I can honestly say him having a bad offensive night did not affect his defense at all. He was snatching rebounds, he was setting screens. He has talked so much about loving having Tahad as the best freshman in America. He's talked about loving having guys around him that can score. We talked about in the offseason about how important it was to surround Janai with shooters to give him the opportunity. And it's for moments like this. When Kalkbrenner went out with two fouls early in that second half, we thought maybe it was a chance for us to stretch the lead and get on a run here. But every time we got the ball to Janai inside on the block, they doubled him. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until the second half that we were able to really take advantage of their defensive rotations once we realized how committed they were to stopping Janai.
Well, yeah, I felt like they kind of let Kalkbrenner hold him down, and he did. I mean, I didn't think they did a ton. We didn't
Oh no, when
throw it to.
Kalkbrenner was in, it was him and Janai one on one, and Kalkbrenner cooked. Shout out to him. He did a lot better than Wolf did last year for Yale against Janai. I think Kalkbrenner finished with 17 points. Let me pull up his stats here.
He had 18, but they were a lot in garbage time.
Yeah,
I mean,
18 points. He was 1 of 3 from deep. He hit 3 of 4 from the free throw line. I wouldn't call them garbage time points as much because he did have 2 offensive rebounds that were pretty good putbacks for him early, and he was
well,
around like
he banked in the three. It was garbage. It was a terrible shot at the end of the shot clock. I can't get. I thought we did well against him. I thought when Dylan was on the floor, he had that assignment, and I thought he was terrific against him.
Yeah, no, Dylan was great. And again, like the great ball players, you're not going to deny them their points. So the question is, can you make them take the shots that you want them to take? And I think we did a really outstanding job with Kalkbrenner of forcing him to take the shots that we wanted him to take, not letting him get going and seeing things that he wanted. And
Well,
again, not letting them run their offense through him. When he was out playing that five out at the top of the key, we fought in and around those screens so hard. And, shout out Miles Kelly. Miles Kelly never quit, but he was not having a good time tonight. They were screening the crap out of Miles Kelly to try to get his guys open. And thankfully, when we slid Miles down to the three, they weren't able to screen him as effectively. And they were not able to screen Denver Jones at all. Denver Jones continues to be an excellent guy fighting through screens to get to those guys on the point that are trying to do the exchange with the centers up there.
Miles has grown up so much. I've said it all year. It is truly amazing to see how much he's bought into this staff and this team and his role on this team compared to his role in previously in his career. He was not a good defender. He was a volume shooter and scorer because he had to be on certain teams. He has bought into the idea that I don't have to have the ball in my hands and I can go play professionally by being a 3-and-D guy if I get the D right because I'm a great 3-point shooter. And man, you're right. He had a really rough offensive game, but he didn't turn the ball over. He played 30 minutes and he played his tail off on defense, trying to chase those guards around.
Matt, Miles
And
Kelly
I
was
would
1 for 5 from deep in the first half. Guess what he was in the second half from deep?
0 for 0
Zero for
because
zero. That
because
is a
we put the
guy,
ball in our other
but
guy's hands and
but
let
that
that drop coverage dictate the offense.
but that is a guy that has bought in.
Yeah.
We've talked so much on this podcast about Auburn guards that want to play hero ball that end up shooting us out of games. And Miles Kelly has been the hero for us. Miles Kelly, they should change it from Lexington to Kellington with how good he shoots in that freaking building. And in a game where it was
Today.
clear after the first half that he did not have his deep stroke the same way that he had in that first game against ASU, his patience, his continued ability to fight, his willingness to slide down to the three, even though, as Matt always says, threes and twos are the same in Bruce Pearl's offense. Just the selflessness that you want to see from a team in trouble. And, shout out to the Sunshine Pumpers. Auburn was in trouble at the start of that second half. And there were periods in that second half where Auburn continued to be in trouble. But what got us out of that trouble was guys trusting each other, not playing out of the system and out of the offense, and just being willing to defend without fouling and not forcing shots. It makes such a difference to have guys that are bought into this system.
Yeah, no doubt. And Miles didn't finish the game.
Yeah.
Maybe he did, but he was out because we wanted to get Chad back in briefly, and then to see if he could go, and then he couldn't go, and then Miles came back in. So just you're right, and Miles I can't say enough about him. He's never hung his head once this year. Whenever anything doesn't go his way, and quite honestly, we all know we have a team of guys that is not always the case for at various times. I just really appreciate the kind of player he's been for us, and the beauty of moving on and having a guy like Miles Kelly is any game could be the game like last game where he tied an Auburn record for 3-pointers made in the first round. He could hit 7 threes in the Sweet 16. He has that kind of potential, and he's one of those 7 weapons that we have. That's really important.
Well, Matt, have we talked about this game enough to move on to the narrative palooza that is coming for us in the Sweet 16? This committee does no favors with this draw. Are we ready to talk about that yet?
I think so. I think so. This is a great win. Everybody should be really pumped and proud of the guys, especially with the storyline. I mean, I kept pinching myself that we were having interviews with the NCAA tournament logo, and they do the official press conferences, and the questions coming out of these people's mouths like, why are we having to talk about effort and energy in the NCAA tournament? It's weird. Like, what's going on? And I'm just really glad for this staff, for these players. They had to get out of this first weekend. We all felt the pressure of like, we need this team that's been so good to at least get to our second Sweet 16 in the Bruce Pearl era. And fortunately, we have done that. Now we're going to play Michigan, a team who is hot. They won the Big Ten tournament. They survived an upset scare against UC San Diego, and they beat our nemesis Texas A&M. I don't know how you feel, Ben, but I think I'm okay with taking our chances against Michigan, even though Dusty May and that group has done a really good job.
I'm glad to see a new opponent. I'm glad that we don't have to face Texas A&M again, for sure. But Matt, we're about to go into another big 7 foot matchup where it's not only Trey Donaldson that's a familiar player for us. We're going to face Yale's Danny Wolf, who
Yeah.
transferred into the Michigan Wolverines, and another huge transfer from I'm gonna try to pronounce this right. Nalchik, Russia. Vladislav Golden, the center for the Wolverines, at 7'1", 250 pounds. Those two players combined for 37 points tonight against Texas A&M, and that's before you factor in rematch with our former starting point guard Trey Donaldson. Matt, what's your key for us to take down the Wolverines and keep dancing to the Elite Eight?
Don't forget about KT Harrell on that staff.
That's right, friend of the podcast.
So, first of all, Wolf and Golden are good players. Golden's not better than Kalkbrenner. Wolf is good, but with our double big lineup, most of the game, I assume the plan will be kind of like tonight. Let's keep Cardwell and Broom on the floor together as much as we can because I love the matchup of Broom and Wolf, and I like the matchup of Cardwell and Golden. I think the more we can keep it that way, the better off we'll be. I have not watched a lot of Michigan. I'll be honest with you, so I'll have to do some more set. But obviously, Dusty May from Florida Atlantic was an incredible coach. Did a great job there. He's gone to Ann Arbor to revitalize that program. Trey Donaldson was part of that, looking for a opportunity to start and be the guy, and he's found it and he's taken advantage. He's been really good for them, and I think we're all happy for Trey. But now, obviously, you don't want to go home at the hands of Trey Donaldson, who, you know, helped us lose to Yale late last year. I think that will be a storyline for sure, like you said. But ultimately, when you get to the second weekend, you're just playing good teams. You're playing good teams no matter who you play. The
Yep.
draws become way less important now because everybody left at the end of this is going to be a really good team going into next week. And Michigan's certainly no different. When you win the Big Ten hasn't lost as of 30 minutes ago in the tournament at all. So this is a big matchup for the SEC. I think the SEC kind of needs Auburn to beat Michigan next week.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that UCLA is technically in the Big Ten, and they're down to Tennessee at halftime, 32-25. But so far, yeah, they've been pretty great. And again, you think about these 1-8, 1-9 matchups. Sometimes they can be pretty good. Houston is only up 11 on Gonzaga late, so they're in a similar situation to what we were facing. Gonzaga a really good 8 draw. Florida's going to have to take on UConn tomorrow, which I
Yep.
would not want to take on the two-time defending champs. I'm super glad we avoided them in our draw. And Duke probably has the easiest path against Baylor, but Baylor's got a lot of talented players. They're young, they haven't really put it together, but you never know. Duke could absolutely be surprised by them in that matchup. It's a time when a lot of one seeds lose. Very, very rarely do they lose in the first round, but a lot of one seeds lose in the round of 32 and lose especially in the Sweet 16. So, Matt, what is it going to take for us to keep on dancing?
You know me, Ben. I'm very boring. It's going to be the defensive game plan, execution, rebounding, winning, forcing turnovers with our intentionality on defense. Um, because those are the areas where we can be weak at times, and whether it's on the glass or whether it's kind of just our defense, our half court defense needs to be great. I would be remiss if we didn't point out the reason Auburn won tonight was because they went on a 20-4 run in the middle of the second half where Creighton went 6 minutes without a point.
Yeah,
Like
it was
that
huge.
is what that's what we've been talking about. This team at its peak all year has been able to do that once or twice a game. When they ratchet it up and they lock in, they get those defensive rebounds. Like we can put 3 to 5 minute stretches together where we hold teams scoreless. And in the same way that a 10-0 run, like you always say, the kill shot offensive run, when you go on a 10-0
Shout
run,
out Evan Maya.
there's the defensive, getting 5 stops in a row, getting 7 stops in a row. Like that helps you win those games too. So to me, it's that end. Like I think our offense is good enough to win games, maybe up until the Florida game. And then it's going to be if we get to Florida in the Final Four, then it becomes okay. How do we beat Florida? Because Florida looks incredible right now. But
Well,
through our
but
bracket,
Florida did a lot of what Creighton did tonight. Florida shot the lights out. They shot from wherever they wanted to. They got the ball in rhythm and never hesitated to shoot because they knew that they could make it.
well,
And
they
we
kicked our tail on the
finally,
glass too.
yeah, but again, like that was the difference tonight was we kicked Creighton's tail on the glass, and even though they shot 44%, we handed them their first L of the season shooting more than 40% from deep. And I think that's a huge deal for us, not just analytically, but confidence wise, knowing that, like, hey, man, teams are going to hit. And like you said, we're only going to face good teams from here. Good teams, they're going to go on their runs. They're going to hit their shots. They're going to hit their tough shots. And what you have to do as a team is not let that rattle you. Stay locked in, stay committed to your assignments, and play the game. And Matt, we had one guy come in, and I know it was only for a few minute stretch, but I still think it matters. We had a guy that has struggled defensively all year come in and play assignment defense pretty well. And, he didn't get addicted when he had the ball in his hand to getting his shot up. Ja'Kai Howard tonight, I thought was really important for this team with Chris Moore out.
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, we didn't play a small forward backup in the first half. He came in when Chad was hurt, and I clearly they had decided Chris Moore wasn't going to go tonight. He was a game time decision, and yeah, I mean, he bought a couple minutes. He didn't break down defensively, and we got him out pretty quickly. So it is nice to have him. I'm glad he got out there. He got to celebrate. Somebody hit a big shot. Maybe it was Denver on that step back three or something and forced a timeout. And he got to be on the court for one of those, like the opponent called timeout. And everybody's going crazy in the shout out to the fans, by the way.
Oh
You
my
could just,
gosh,
it was
yes.
popping in Lexington on the
Shout out
TV.
Shooty Hoops Will. We miss you.
Um, yeah, so I'm glad Jakai got in there. And if Chris, honestly, I'm okay if they give him one of those rotations a game or two of those. Like, he's like, I don't know. Maybe there's going to be a matchup where Chris Moore makes sense to play a little more, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. You may see more of what we saw tonight, which, like you said, is pretty rare in the Bruce Pearl era, but it's kind of a 7-man lineup, and foul trouble didn't get in the way, right? It didn't force our hand to make any subs tonight.
Well, we were lucky that Creighton commits the least fouls, but also they forced us to commit the least amount of fouls tonight. We were so disciplined on that. I think we finished with 11 total team fouls to Creighton's 17. We actually forced them to commit more fouls than we did, which is incredible. I would have bet the farm against that. But yeah, that discipline needs to carry forward because that is going to play regardless of what's on the other team's jersey. And Matt, I don't want to get too crazy here, but Houston's only up 4 against Gonzaga with a minute to go. It's getting tight.
Well, it's getting tight. It always does, man. We were down to what 5 or 6. We were up on Creighton late with 2 minutes to go, so
I think so.
it gets tight. I just wanted to share a little bit about Michigan and their analytics. We've been using Ken Palm all year because it's been friendly to Auburn, quite frankly. But it's one of the more respected, one of the more well-respected measurements there. And interestingly enough, Auburn is the 12th ranked defense in America right now. Michigan is
Yeah.
13th, so right next to us there. But the difference, Auburn is now number 2 in offensive efficiency, and Michigan is 39th. So, if you think Creighton was 32nd today, I believe they were, 32nd. So we have an analytical advantage on offense. Now we have to execute that and get good looks and knock down shots. But if we play defense to that level and if we can match their defensive level of intensity, I think we've got a good chance to try to advance.
Sorry, I know you're doing the analytical analysis, but I'm here in the YouTube chat, and we've got Jay Lowry, AU Bear, Pocket Watch, Luke Thomas, all of our regulars here having a good time in the chat, talking about being in Lexington, talking about making it to Atlanta for the game. If you are in the Auburn area, make it to Atlanta for one of these games for the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. I promise it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth continuing to watch this team make history, and they need us. They need that home court advantage of us being right next door in Atlanta to cheer on your Auburn Tigers as they try to take down Michigan and try to take down Michigan State and what I assume would be New Mexico, right? New Mexico and Michigan State are matched up around down there.
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah. So Pocket Watch, AU Bear, Luke Thomas, glad to have you here. Uh, Pocket Watch is asking, isn't Pat Adams in the tournament somewhere? Good grief, I hope not. Please tell me Pat Adams is not officiating any of these tournament games.
I, don't they like get graded in advance? Like, isn't that a thing? Do they?
Yeah,
Is that already announced that he
that's
would
what
ref
Ryan
next week?
said. So hopefully that means that they have not advanced Pat Adams any further than the round of 64. But who knows?
At Adams is in right now. Yeah, Pocket Watch is talking about that. But Luca Thomas says we do not lose to Big Ten teams in Atlanta. That has been true when we play those non-conference games at State Farm Arena.
You're
It's going
right.
to be a fun Auburn crowd because you're looking at, yeah, like you said, teams that are not from the Southeast. Michigan State will travel if they're there. Iowa State will travel, but there should be a good Auburn advantage in that building next week. You would hope.
You would hope, Matt. It's so good to have you back. The X feed has missed your calm critical analysis, but I think the podcast has missed it even more. Matt, we just
No,
got one
no,
question before we wrap it up tonight. Unless what do you got for me?
Ben, you should have just said I was the one that was tweeting. I've been tweeting. I've taken
I
the
think everybody knows who is the psychopath that is completely losing their mind on X every night. It's always me.
well, here's what I've learned, Ben. There's group chat during game, Ben, and there's podcast a few hours later, Ben. Like you and Ryan were so calm and reasonable on that. I was shocked when I listened to the podcast. I thought for sure it was going to be flames just burning off of it, and y'all stuck with this team, and you stuck with the even though it was ugly, and you said they were going to have to prove it to you. But I just want to ask you before we leave. You know, we everything you said and tweeted, by the way, just to make everybody clear, was pretty right, and maybe the delivery could be a little different, but like when Dylan Cardwell and Stephen Pearl come out saying a lot of the same things after the game publicly, I know you felt a little vindicated by that. But my question is, how did today feel for you as somebody who was feeling all those really negative? It was so bad the last couple weeks in certain ways.
Here's the thing, and we've talked about this with Auburn basketball a lot. Like, how long's the runway for your mistakes? It's college basketball. Teams are going to make mistakes. And for so much of the year, our runway has been so long. You think back to the Arkansas game, you think back to the first Tennessee game. This team has had so many weapons and so much talent and so much fearlessness that they've had a long runway of we can make a lot of mistakes and still turn it on when we need to. And the last 2 weeks of the season were so miserable for all of us to watch after we'd hung that banner and we knew we needed to get guys healthy. And we knew that, Bruce talked about wanting to get the most wins in the regular season ever. Like that's such a meaningless record for how good this team is. This team is going to be the team that Auburn gets compared to until we win a national championship. And if this team wins a national championship, forget about it. This will be the team of teams for all time. Like every time we'll be like, feels like that 2025 team. Feels like we got them. In
Mhm.
the SEC tournament against Tennessee, Tennessee wanted and needed that game so badly. They felt like they got screwed in Neville, and they came out and they went hard at us. They went hard at Janai Broom. Zakai Ziegler went off, and it looked like they were going to run us out of the gym. And then with about 7.5 minutes to go, we locked in and went on a 10-0 run where we looked like a national championship basketball team.
Mhm.
And even when we lost that game with two good looks at the basket late to tie it at 68, I said, all right, I'm back on board. I'm back on board with this team because I have seen them finally flip that switch back on that we knew they flipped off against the Texas A&M game. Against Alabama State, we talked about it in the preview. We wanted it to be a get right game for us. We wanted to run them off the court, win that game by 40 like Duke did, like Houston did, like Florida did in their first round game. We didn't do it. Our best players did not look like our best players. We were so obviously more talented than Alabama State was that it felt like we were coasting. And you cannot coast in March. You're only going to play good teams. Creighton finished second in the Big East, the home of St. John's and UConn, and some of the most storied programs in college basketball. And we found a switch in the second half. Denver Jones found a switch. Chad Baker Mazzara found the switch. Dylan Cardwell found the switch. Tahad Pettiford, good grief, found that switch. This team can still win a national championship. It is not going to be easy. Good grief, do I want it to be easy? I want us to sail through the next 4 games, winning by 12 to 15 points each. But it ain't going to happen, man. There's
No,
too
and
many. There's too many good teams between here and there. But I think this team has finally turned it back on.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's crazy. The potential path is Big Ten tournament champion, Big Ten regular season champion, Florida, and Duke. If things were to hold, obviously a lot could change along the way. But we know we're playing Michigan. We played the second best team in the Big East. We're playing the team that won the Big Ten tournament next. It there is an advantage, I think, for us playing new teams, like you said. I think it's
Sure.
hard to replicate this Auburn team's athleticism and the way they come at you when they put it on. I mean, we overwhelmed Creighton as the game went on with our game plan and our physicality. And I think we can do that to teams that aren't aren't quite frankly SEC team. I mean that I'm not saying the SEC is like far and away better than everybody because the Big Ten's been winning everything in the tournament so far, but it is different. It's a different style of play. And I hope that will work to our advantage as we try to work our way to the Final Four.
Well, you know what they say about the SEC, Matt? It just means more. And
It
Matt
meant more to
Donaldson,
our players tonight. That's all we can ask for, right? It looked like it meant a lot to them, and I'm glad they're dancing. They get to go home and then travel to make the short trip to Atlanta. And now, you've survived the first 2 rounds. Now you're trying to win 2 games to go to another Final Four, which would be historic for Auburn, would be historic for Bruce Pearl, and obviously none of these players had been to the second weekend. None
no,
of them.
Dylan talked about that in his interview.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want to look back and wonder what it would have been like to get to the Final Four. And Dylan Cardwell, wonder no more. Because guess what, my friend? You're getting to the second weekend. And Matt, I don't know about you. I'm still having fun. Are you still having fun?
And when you make the Sweet 16 for the fourth time in your life, you better be having fun. And it's truly awesome. You've been doing great work on the pod. It's great to see everybody on the pod. And War Eagle, let's go win another one next week.
War damn Eagle. We'll put the explicit tag on if we got it. Good night, everybody. And
Good
good night, Luca Thomas. I was calling him Luke, and I
Luca,
sorry, my eyesight's not what it used to be, Luca.
great chat. Great chat out here.
Good to see everybody here. Good to win one. Holy cow, Matt, let's go to bed.
Yeah, I'm out of here. Who's putting this episode up? Me or you?
You can send it to me, and I can put it up in the morning if you want.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, send me the email. Bye.